just keep moving, keep doing things, but do them with people. And that was those two things together would be the advice I'd give myself, is just keep moving, but do it around people. And I love CrossFit because it's community based, and turning up there are always days where you don't want to move, right? There are always days you don't want to move, but you do want to see your mate.
Hey, what's up, everybody? From the rugby pitches in Australia and the Philippines to the sidelines at Stanford University, Josh Sutcliffe has spent over 2 decades shaping athletes and coaches worldwide. He pioneered the elite coach development pathway for USA Rugby and now equips high-performing coaches of all sports to cultivate team cultures built on trust, belonging, and performance. His mission: to help coaches stop chasing expectations and start building lasting legacies. Welcome, Josh.
Hey, how you doing, Brian?
Excellent. I'm so glad you're here. We want the first question to dive right in. So we just heard about your incredible journey as both a player and a coach in rugby. But before we dive deeper into that, can you give us a snapshot of you, what your own training and fitness look like today, and how that compares to when you were competing at the highest level of rugby?
Yeah, I mean, today, I guess I do jujitsu now. And that's sort of my, the basis of my competitive outlet. And I think as a rugby player, I played in the front row, which is where the big boys play. And my body was very beat up, and, 17 years of senior rugby. So 17 to 34, I was playing senior rugby, and I wanted to get to know my body as a 40-year-old. And I think the best way to do that is not only myself, but in contact with someone else. So my fitness revolves primarily around going to 6 to 8 classes a week of jujitsu, and then supplementing that with, a fitness app called Street Parking. And so I do some metabolic conditioning workouts in amongst that, and a lot of rucking or walking. Depends how I feel, whether I put a backpack on or not. So the highest priority for me is rucking and jujitsu, because I want to have longevity. And the biggest thing with jujitsu for me is if I learn how to roll, fall, and protect my body, then I get so many different benefits. And then the other real bonus out of it is my 3 daughters also do jujitsu, so I get to do it alongside them. So
so you mentioned rucking. Let's talk about that first, 'cause I think that might be the easiest to explain. Assume I know nothing about rucking. What is it? When do you do it? Why do you do it?
Yeah, the easiest way to describe it is put anything in a backpack. Anything. When I go overseas, and one of the big attractions of rucking for me is I can do it anywhere and explore another place. And so the reason I wanted to get into rucking was I love when I go on journeys and that sort of thing. I can walk around a campus or wherever it happens to be, throw weight in a backpack, walk around. I try and go for at least 45 minutes, and I just go at a pace that feels good, right? But not easy. And so for me, it's like this pace it's not an amble, because I'm a slow walker normally. So I try and walk at a consistent speed. So for me, it's like, it's not a walk in the park where I'm looking at the birds or anything, but it's walking fast enough, but I could still have a conversation on the phone or that sort of thing.
Okay. So you're walking, like if you were walking in the downtown of a major city and you didn't want to get mugged, you would be walking at this relatively, slightly quicker, more deliberate pace and going forward, right?
Yeah, it looks like I'm going somewhere with a purpose, right?
Yeah. And you mentioned, like, this is not a weighted vest. This is a backpack.
Yeah, it's a backpack. Like for me, most of the time when I'm traveling, I have a laptop, I have my iPad, I have an external monitor. Like that's like 20 pounds. So anything, throw a gallon of water in there, and then you're talking like 25 pounds, and that's all you need. And away you go, and you walk for 45 minutes if I've got a phone call. I found that this is one way that I can increase my activity generally. As a rugby coach, I was really able to sort of be out moving around all the time. When I wasn't a coach, I was like, man, I'm sitting down a lot. And so this was another way to just get moving. And I have some friends that were really big into rucking when I was in the Bay Area, and hiking and all of those things. And it just seemed like something that I could do without much thought and with a very low barrier to entry.
I mean, you got a phone call coming up, throw the bag on, carry it around, take a little walk around your block until the call is over.
Yep.
Yeah, that's I wrote a book. It's right up there called 1 Minute 1 Minute Fitness, and one of the chapters is called Move Every Hour. And I mean, this is I just wanted you to go for a walk, but even better, like put on a ruck and go on a walk, especially when you got a phone call coming up.
Right.
I mean, and it works really well when the other person. I will tell you, it is amazing at how, that ripple when you put the pebble in the lake. You throw it and you throw that pebble in the lake by saying, "Hey, I'm going to go on a ruck. Do you mind while we're on this call?"
Right.
And how often their response can be, "You know what? That's phenomenal. Let me go grab the dogs and let me take them for a walk too while I'm talking." I mean, it's so good. It's so good.
And it's just, I don't know, I start smiling more. And if we are ideating in any way, shape, or form, the ideas flow much better. It's incredible how that movement just plays with the mind.
Yeah, that's incredible. Okay, so you ruck. It sounds like almost every day, and then you talked about jujitsu 6 to 8 times a week. That sounds a lot.
It's too much, to be honest.
Okay. How are you fitting this into your schedule?
Yeah, there are lunchtime classes and then there are evening classes. So the 6 days would be Monday through Saturday. Most of the time I'm taking my daughters there anyway. So I'm the chauffeur anyway. So I was going to be there. They're training themselves. And so doing an hour there, and then if I can add in an extra lunchtime class, mostly for me, it's about community. And I think this is one of the big things that I've learned in fitness. I loved CrossFit when I was younger. I did a lot at different gyms.
Yeah.
And then even when I was at a CrossFit, I'd often be doing my own training, but it was the people around me. Yeah. And so for me, why do I go 6 to 8 times a week? It's not, I don't go intensely every time. Sometimes it's just being there with the people, seeing different folks, helping others learn, being a drill partner. And so there's a difference, right? I think when I say jujitsu, everyone's like, "Oh, you're fighting 6 to 8 times a week," right?
Yeah. I run into the same, as a CrossFit gym. People are like, "Oh, you kill yourself every time." No, we don't. That's not healthy. It's not sustainable. It's not fun, right? We have different
I have common sense as well, right?
Yeah,
and I now am 40, which means I use my common sense, which I didn't use when I was 25. And, now I manage around an injury, right? Whereas before I would have pushed straight through it. And for me, but it's really being on the mats with people, and to break up my day. Since I do work remotely for most of the things that I do, having that interaction with people is more key to my sort of personal health, than the actual time I spend on the mats all the time. So it's a little bit of a mix of both. There are days I go pretty hard. And then there are days I'm in there and I roll with my kids. I mean, my daughters are 13 and, they weigh 100 pounds. So that role is not the same as someone who's my weight at 230 that is trying to strangle me constantly for 4.5 minutes.
Sure. Awesome. Yeah. And, the concept, so, man, she's 19 now. So 15 years ago, it just blew my mind where my life was. I sat on a bus to get to work, got to work, sat around for 8 to 9 hours, got on a bus, sat on the bus again for 30 to 45 minutes, went and picked up my daughter, took her to gymnastics where she had been up and around all day. And then I want to take her to gymnastics where she gets to be up and around and so much. And then what do? I sit down and watch my kid. It's like, there is something wrong with this picture. So I love it when people join my gym and come in to work out in my gym where we've got, a father, son, mom and daughter, or, whatever. For me, it's father, daughter, working out together. This weekend, I mean, she's 9 and it's a little on the youngish side, but she and I worked out. We did a partner workout today.
There you go.
Or Saturday. Yeah. And also giving that example for our kids, right?
Yeah. It's really important to me to do that. So I think when you get that opportunity to do something alongside your kids that brings a smile to both your faces, that's incredible.
Exactly. Well, I mean, you're pretty busy and it sounds like you're pretty locked in. I mean, you got 3 kids, you're married, you have a job, all the things, you're rucking, you're doing jujitsu. What does your morning routine look like?
My morning routine is about my kids.
Okay.
I have my oldest is 16. She has to be at school by 6:55.
Okay.
So I wake up at 6 o'clock. The first thing I do is make sure she's awake. That's the first job of my day, because that might take 10 minutes, a couple of snoozes with her. And then I read. And for me, I try and get in. So I did 75 hard a couple of years ago. So when my wife moved to Vanderbilt and I was still working at Stanford, so I was finishing out my contract for a year.
Okay.
That's a long commute home.
Yeah, it's a big commute.
Yeah, and then she actually went through breast cancer for the second time. And in that moment, it felt like there was nothing that I could control about my life. I was traveling, I was putting on weight, I was dealing with a lot of family. So I actually decided that, you know what, let's do 75 hard. And that's where I learned that rucking can be a part of almost every day of my life. And that was 45-minute workout. The other piece was that 10 pages of they said self-development. I just do sort of 20 pages of reading now. And for me, I am not your classic read a book from cover to cover. I read like 6 books at the same time. And part of the reason I do that is a lot of them are around coaching or ideas that I'm playing with. And so I'll read a chapter, stop, I'll play with that idea, and then I'll read other books. So some are biographies, and I sort of intersperse that with, I guess, my learning reading. But every morning, that 6:10 to 6:30, before I take my oldest to school, I'll spend that reading. If the sun's up, I'll try and read on the front porch, but I do live in Nashville, and the summertime is not a fun place to read outside. You just start sweating for no reason.
So don't tell me about that.
So yeah, I try and get a bit of sunlight there, and during that time, I also try and get down sort of 32 ounces of water. And so that would be my morning routine, and take my oldest to school, come back. I have my twin daughters who are 13 years old. Spend time with them. I spend time with my wife, and make sure they get away to their stuff appropriately. So,
okay. Now I'm just tossing it out there because do you walk barefoot in the grass?
I love to, like, that would be my preference. Okay. So I wear minimalist sandals. Sharma Sandals is the brand that I use, but I've used Earth Runners, and there's a ton of others. There is actually another Josh Sutcliffe who is a barefoot Josh Sutcliffe.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
Right. And so when I was CrossFitting really heavily in Greensboro, when was this? Like 2008 to 2011.
Okay.
I used to do half of my workouts barefoot, right? And so when Five Fingers came out, I was that I was that crazy person.
Okay.
I love being in bare feet. The unfortunate part is walking around in bare feet is more difficult than I'd like it to be. But so I wear minimalist shoes. So not quite barefoot, but with my toes out as much as possible.
Okay. You just, given everything else you were telling me, you just struck me as the guy who wakes up in the morning, gets in the sunlight, bare feet on the grass to ground yourself. Yeah. Do you have like a minimum fitness floor? Like every day, it sounds like rucking, if I had to guess, especially when you're traveling.
Yeah, 45 minutes a day. I will do something. And so if I'm traveling, like when I traveled to Asia, I was coaching the Philippine team over the summer. I can't ruck, right? You're on a 14-hour plane ride. So getting up and doing some standing yoga and finding ways without becoming too intrusive of someone else, right?
So I've realized that being weird is the healthiest thing to do. And when you're doing standing yoga on a 14-hour flight, Josh, he's weird too. He's weird too. In fact, you notice how the people talking about fitness are the weird people? Yep.
Yeah, all of them.
Awesome.
It's so much fun and so 45 minutes, that's my floor every day. And even if it's yoga, if it's walking, whatever it happens to be, sometimes life gets away from you. You can still do it, right? Like you can go on a 15-minute walks throughout the course of the day.
Yeah. And that's a great way to break it down. Like we're not always talking about 45 minutes in big chunk, but 3, 50, explaining to someone as I was writing my book, the book is about, if you train with me 6 hours a week, that's a lot, right?
Mm-hmm.
We think of that as a lot. There are 162 other hours in the week, right? And you're telling me you can't give me 3 15-minute blocks a day? Really? Is that
Right.
Is that really where we are in this society now?
Yeah, and I think the other thing is, right, we used to, I used to ride my bike a lot, right? Like when I lived in the Bay Area, everything's flat.
Okay.
Nashville, it's not flat.
Yeah.
And so I'm not riding my bike everywhere. That's I sweat a lot. It's a disaster if I ride anywhere.
I love it. Yeah.
Even if I'm going to a meeting, right, I can't walk to the meeting because I will end up a sopping wet mess.
Yeah.
And so, but you can spend 15 minutes on a walking chat, right?
Yeah.
Go out after dinner, and go for a little walk. So I really enjoy being outside.
Cool. Now, you mentioned kind of before you actually told me more about your wife, but with your experience training high-level athletes and with 3 daughters who are always busy and active, how do you recognize the signs of burnout?
It's
where we're doing too much. Have you recognized the signs of burnout where you or your athletes or your family are doing too much?
Yeah. I think when the frowns set in for long periods of time, right? Like, when you CrossFit, right? There's a workout on the board, you walk in, you're like, oh, this is not my jam today, right?
Yeah.
Like we're okay with that frown.
Yeah.
But when the frown is persistent, right?
Yeah.
That's the first thing that I start to look at. And so for me, if I sit in the car for a long time before going into the jujitsu gym, I know I'm starting to get there. And so I'll peel it back. I'll change the roles that I'm planning on having, or, I now take workouts off, right? Like I just won't do a workout that I had planned to do, which is a huge one for me, or I'll take the ruck off and I'll just go for a walk, right? And so learning how to modify that, I think with me, I have to be really careful that I don't overload my joints too much because I've damaged so many of them playing rugby. So.
Okay. Now, have you noticed, or when you think about burnout, is it more from your physical training, or is it more from like the other stresses in life?
I think for me at this stage of my life, this would have been different, right? When I was a rugby player and I was playing all the time, the burnout came from the need to get it's mental mixed with physical, because it was the need to get so up for every contact training session. Yeah. But then your body's beat up, so it was really hard to recover. Yeah. And so you have this back and forth. And I remember asking coaches, like, I need to sit this one out, otherwise I'm going to get injured, right? Like you can kind of feel that coming on. Whereas now it's when, if I pick up a couple of niggles, I know I'm starting to get to that point where, I need to do some recuperation, active recuperation, where I'm really focusing on making sure I'm eating right, putting things in my mouth that give me enough protein, and I dial in those things. And normally by changing my emphasis from being active to the things I do for myself, that's how I sort of reconcile the burnout and get my energy back. Okay.
Yeah. You talking about, what was your quote about the frown?
The more persistent frowns, right?
Persistent frowns. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've trained lots of teens, and the parents are like, hey, are they doing too much? Because, a teen can recover like in the moment of exertion, right? I mean,
I'm
it's
so
like,
jealous.
an adult can't look at a teenager and go, oh yeah, that's too much, right? Because it's not physically. But what I tell them, are they happy, right? Mm-hmm. If they're happy coming to the gym, then they need to be coming to the gym. Right. Yep. Now, if they're like, oh, and they're rolling their eyes and they're cranky and they're okay, now we've got a different issue. But if they're happy, right. And I can only, when I was in the 9th grade, I had where I was super stressed. Lots of things were going down in my life that were not good. And I was overtrained. Most people would say I was overtraining. Well, but I can tell you, even to this day, I mean, this was like 25 years ago. No, goodness, more than that. 35 years ago, that that saved me, right? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, the extra training was what was helping me get through.
Yep.
And so, yeah, I like that. The persistent frown. I'd not thought about it that way before. You spend a lot of time taking care of yourself. Do you feel
Yep.
any guilt toward that at all? Because I know you've got other priorities.
No, there are some days where it doesn't happen the way I want it to happen.
Okay.
I was talking to my wife about this actually probably about 6 months ago, and I realize I'm a happier person if I get 2 to 3 hours of activity. Now, that sounds like a heap of activity, but it's not necessarily all high stress activity, right? Like, going for a walk with your partner, yes, that's activity, right? But it's not a high stress activity. Well, it shouldn't be a high stress activity if you're having a good conversation. And so for me, I know my mind and my body works better when I do that. So being active and being in movement is something that I'm a better human, right? Like I get less angry less quickly. My patience is higher. All of these things that make me a better father, a better husband,
Yeah.
And so do I feel guilty? I have felt guilty. I don't generally feel guilty now. I think if my kids stop doing jujitsu and my wife stops doing jujitsu and I'm always going to the gym, that might change a little bit.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Is there life advice that you wish you could give yourself, 10 or 15 years ago?
Yeah. Just keep moving. Right? Like that would be so I was 34 years old when I got the job at Stanford, and I was still playing. So I played my last game in May that year in 2015, and I started coaching full time in September with nothing else, right? And I was coaching the men and the women, going back and forth between, and normally you give yourself a couple of months off, then you start doing your rehab and your prehab and everything that goes along with the rugby season. I did none of that. And my body started freezing up in weird ways, in a way that I'd never experienced before. And so that was about 10 years ago now. And it's just like, just keep moving, keep doing things, but do them with people. And that was those two things together would be the advice I give myself, is just keep moving, but do it around people. And I love CrossFit because it's community based, and turning up there are always days where you don't want to move, right? There are always days you don't want to move, but you do want to see your mate. And I think that piece of it was so critical for me. And I got very lonely during that first few years of coaching. My wife was, once again, we're not an example of what to do in marriage, because she was in Illinois for 3 years while I was at Stanford. She had 3 kids over there. So she was working at Northwestern and I was working at Stanford, and I was doing the commute back and forth. Long story, won't get into that. She made the decision. I thought she was moving out there, but she didn't. And so that was life. And we dealt with that for 3 years. But instead of finding community out there and doing fitness with them, I kind of got isolated. And and then because I stopped moving, I was broken, right? And so instead of learning what my body was, I was broken and I was lonely. And I think that's the advice I give myself. Keep moving and do it with people.
Yeah. Awesome. That's awesome advice. Thank you, Josh, for sharing that with us. Now, tell us more, because I know you have a job, right? Tell us more about your engaged performance coaching method. Like simple terms, break it down for us, but what makes it different than other coaching programs?
Yeah, it's a 7-step process, or there's 7 broad categories. But it's broken into thirds. The first third deals with who the coach is and how they find their belonging and confidence. The second part is how you figure out your culture, right? So what are the things, and culture for me is the things you pay attention to and the things you choose to ignore, right? So how do you determine what those things are, and how do you have empathy for other people to modify the culture that you're creating? And I think it's really important that athletes help add to the culture, because then you're co-creating that together. And then the last one is about the performance, and that's broken into sort of freedom and grit. You have a swimmer, right, and a water polo player. You were telling me earlier. One of the most incredible things about a swimmer is, and I love swimmers because I'm Australian, so I grew up watching all the famous Australian swimmers. And Kieran Perkins was a 1,500 meter swimmer, and he I can't remember which Olympics it was, but he came out of the semi-final and he blew up like a tomato. He was in lane 8 for the final and he just came in with a different focus and he sent it and won the gold medal again, right? And he knew what his training would allow him to do, but he also had the freedom to go beyond it. And that's the freedom we want athletes to have, is they know what they're capable of doing, but then they know that in the right moment, they're willing to take this risk and go for it. The grit is for the coaches, because you do have to sit there and deal with like random things happening at all times and finding those rituals. So how's this different to other programs? It's a bespoke program for you. Which of these 7 steps are you struggling with? Where do you need the support? Some coaches have no problem with confidence, but they have huge parts of problem with like empathy, right? Okay. Some are very aware of who they are, but they're not quite sure how they belong at the institution they're working for. Okay. And that one's a big one, especially for people like myself who come from a multicultural background. You don't look like the coach that's been there before you. You don't come from the history or whatever it happens to be. And if you're the first, being someone for you to rely on. And then the last piece of this that's pretty interesting, I guess, is being a head coach is a really lonely spot, right? Yeah. Every time you walk in the room, everyone stops talking. And it's real easy to be like, well, did I just stop? Are they talking about, you don't have any idea. And so I want a coach to have somewhere to word vomit, right? They need to be able to get rid of their feelings, talk about what they're fearing. And because I've sat in their shoes or similar shoes, I'm able to reflect back and ask questions, and they can get through those different pieces of it and sort of come out the other side stronger.
Okay. Thinking about other things that you shared about your personal journey, I know that belonging is a central tenet of working with coaches. Why is that? Why do you think that's such a strong part of the culture that coaches need to create?
Yeah, I think there's 2 pieces of belonging. I think especially for a coach, the first piece of belonging is the coach to where they are working. Right. And as a sports coach, you're always working for someone, and there needs to be that alignment. So you as a coach need to work to find your belonging in that place. And then you need to create belonging for the athletes. Right. And the process is very similar, but you've got to find things that you attach to about that place. And then you've got to really lean into those aspects and find your places where you feel comfortable. And when you feel comfortable in those places, when you feel ready for the challenge, that's when the culture really starts to evolve, because our culture is revealed when we get under pressure. Yeah. Right. And if you're a coach, pressure is a privilege. Right. Yeah. And that's the saying that goes around. I actually really like Alexander Volkanovski. He's a UFC fighter, and he said it after his last championships fight. Adversity is a privilege. And we want that as coaches. We want some of that adversity, and we've got to see it as a privilege. And you can't really face that adversity unless you feel like you're not under threat from being kicked out of the group.
Okay. How do you, when you're coaching coaches, how do you balance, or which comes first, winning or performing at a high level versus building a culture?
For me, that's a really simple question. It always starts with culture.
Okay, right? Really?
Yeah. It always starts with care.
Okay. And so my challenge to that is, when I was a kid, I would say yes, right? Culture. But I've seen, you watch athletes, you watch sports for as long as I have, and you see coaches, they don't make it to the point where they can create a culture because they've lost, they went 1-25 in 2 football seasons, right?
Yep.
So how do you have an opinion or thoughts on that?
And I think this is where, as a coach, you have to find belonging with the alignment that is there with the institution, right? Okay. If that alignment's not there, you can't care the way you would like to. And I think some of the stuff, like I look at Coach Lee right now at Vanderbilt. He had a couple of bad seasons. He decided to take a risk and change everything. They beat Alabama last year, which honestly, craziest sporting event that I've ever seen the aftermath to. And, absolutely unbelievable. And then last weekend they go into South Carolina, and you've got to have the trust of the institution
Okay.
to be able to create the culture. And if that's not there, it doesn't matter what you do as a coach. Nothing that you do is going to get you the wins necessarily. And so for me, I think if you're stepping into that role, you already believe that you have the technical ability to get it done on the field.
Okay. Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So that's a flaw. That's a prerequisite for getting to the doorway.
Yeah.
And to me, and this might be controversial, it might be different to other people, but I believe you lead with care, and you have to show care for the people who are there. And that's the genesis of your culture. That's the nucleus that becomes the bonding part of everything else that you create.
Okay. So I'm not disagreeing with leading with care. I'm just talking to a rugby coach, which is not really the feel. I don't think of like your soft, feel good, sport, right? So when you talk about care, what specifically do you mean?
Yeah.
Because I don't think y'all are sitting in a circle holding hands, cross-legged, singing Kumbaya.
No. And
Does
I'm an explosive personality
anymore. I don't know.
I don't know. And I'm an explosive personality, right? Like I will get angry and I will get pissed off and I will yell and scream and compliment and do all the things that you might see in a classic coach. I think that the way I care is you're looking at a person who is an athlete and other things. And that's where you see them first. So the care aspect for me is seeing them as more than just the person who's in the arena with you. You're starting to see who they are as a person, especially in college spaces, right? They're a student, which means they're exploring. They don't know what they want to be. They might come in saying, I want to be this. And as a senior, they want to be something completely different, right? So you're actually being with them on that journey. So that's the care piece. And the care piece is also being willing to challenge them where they don't want to go, right? You're like, hey, you're comfortable here, but actually success lies over here. And you have to, care is being willing to be the bad guy, right? And as a parent, I was about to say, as a parent, we all were like, oh yeah, now these dots are starting to get connected. Yeah. And so I need to be willing to discipline, right? I need to be willing to hold a standard. I need to be willing to be like, you didn't meet the standard and therefore here's the consequence. Yeah. And to me, that's all wrapped up into my idea of care. And so it doesn't sound, when I say it, it sounds very woo-woo and all of those things. But really at the end of the day, it's like, I'm trying to see the whole person and I'm trying to like push them to where they don't want to go, but where I believe they can reach. Okay. Awesome. As we start to wrap up our conversation, if you can give our listeners only one action to move forward, which action would you want them to take? Keep moving and do it with people.
Keep moving and do it with people. I love it. Yep. Love it. What is the best way that people can connect with you or reach out to you? Yeah,
probably the easiest is on Instagram. I'm pretty active there at J_SUT. So at JSUT. Okay. I think that's right. Yeah, no, that's right. And if you want to jump on a call and talk coaching with me, you can go to freecallwithjosh.com and
freecallwithjosh.com.
Yep. And perfect. You can book a call there. If you want to talk coaching, I love to talk coaching. So anytime, doesn't matter the sport, individual, team, whatever it is, or even business coaching, right? If you want to talk about your coaching, feel free to reach out and book a time. I'd love to chat with you.
Awesome. And I'll put links in the show notes. I'm pointing down because that's where the show notes will be. So that people can reach you easier. Well, thanks, Josh. Really appreciate your time and insight. This was awesome.
No worries. Thank you, Brian, for having me.
Awesome. Have a great day.
You too.
Bye.